am Enzo.
And I'm Reina.
And this is the Date Night Horror Show.
Did you miss that?
Reina, yes, I did miss that. We're back with another awesome horror
finally.
podcast. Yes, the original horror couple is back.
Woohoo!
And I'm particularly excited about this episode. I always say that, but I really mean it this time. This episode is the Antichrist episode.
Yes. Can't see, but I'm dancing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have to say my fascination and pure addiction for horror started in the 70s. So in the 70s, we got, because of The Exorcist, which is amazing,
Yep.
we got some amazing satanic 70s horror. And one of my absolute favorites is the Omen series. Richard
good.
Donner, rest in peace. Amazing. He also did the Superman, first two Superman movies. What is it about this Antichrist concept that gets under people's skin? What do you think it is?
I think particularly for us, it's because of our background.
Yeah.
You know, our Catholic, we're both raised Mexican Catholic. And so I feel like that is like the ultimate horror story for any Catholic person.
Yeah.
Is the
See, that's the
Antichrist.
one thing I'm proud of being a Catholic for. We invented the
That's
Antichrist,
right.
son.
That's right. Son.
Oh, man. It's interesting because I've always seen, without getting too religious, I've always seen the Bible as more like fables to help humanity kind of solve its problems and all that.
Like a guidebook.
Yeah, so I'm not, the story of the Antichrist, I'm not waiting for a multi-headed creature to come out of the, endless sea or whatever.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I think it's a metaphor for, hey, your leaders, don't just go off and like trust everything they do. Like sometimes something will, a wolf in sheep's clothing will appear. And I feel like the Antichrist is that, and without getting too political, we've seen the Antichrist multiple times.
Yeah.
I feel in human history, modern human history for sure. And I think that's why it resonates for me, because yes, it taps into my Catholicism as well, my Catholic upbringing.
Yeah.
But it's a little more heady, You can involve politics in an Antichrist film.
Yeah.
You can involve cultism and, all these other interesting isms and still make a great horror film. And the concept is intrinsically scary.
It is.
I think
it's a creepy baby
Yeah.
and child and toddler and young, and that's just creepy. Creepy kids are amazing.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's a plan for that creepy kid. And we all have the context of what an Antichrist is supposed to grow up and do. So I think that combination is very cool. So for this episode, we're going to do 3 reviews of modern films, current films that involve an Antichrist theme. The first, Omen, Immaculate,
Yep.
and Son. What I like about these choices, one is a studio film
Right.
with big money behind it. One is an independent film that has had a theatrical release.
Right.
And the third one is an independent film that we've seen on Shudder,
Right.
which is a smaller film. All 3 have come out really close to each other.
Right.
And we can kind of dissect which one did it better, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But before we go into that, I want to ask you, what films in history of horror cinema with an Antichrist theme have been your favorites?
Well, I have a couple, but the one that stands out for me or comes to my mind right now is Rosemary's Baby.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's just so good. Mia Farrow's so good in it. She plays like the innocent,
Yeah.
not really know what's going on. Everyone around her that is creepy, that's trying to make sure she gets impregnated by the devil,
Yeah.
and make sure that the plan goes through, is creepy. Older people.
Yeah, I think you get that first taste of the conspiratorial part of creating the Antichrist. You know, these people coming together in a cultish sort of way to make this happen.
Yeah.
And that film is so elegant and creepy.
And it's different. It's a different way of presenting that theme. So I thought that was, and they did it so beautifully.
Yeah. I feel Rosemary's Baby, 70s horror owes a lot to Rosemary's Baby. Because I think without Rosemary's Baby, there would be no Exorcist. Because it came after. And then, of course, after that, then everyone saw dollars in the devil. And they wanted to do all this stuff. I think my choice is a sort of an obvious choice. The Omen series. I love all three of those films. A lot of people don't know that there was a third film because it's not named. Now they added the byline Omen 3, but when it came out, it was the final conflict. Right. And it didn't say anything about the Omen. So even I was confused when it came out. And when I find out that it's the third Omen film, I flipped out because I love the first two films.
Yeah, you introduced me to the Omen. I hadn't seen it before we started dating.
Yeah, it's great. And what I love about the Omen films is that all three films are different. In the first Omen movie, Damien is sort of innocent because he's a child. He's basically, 3-4-year-old child?
Right. He plays creepy so well, that little actor, though.
Yeah. And he gives you those creepy stares and stuff. But for the most part, I think the audience is constantly going, oh man, can you kill a child? Like, that's the creepiness of it, right? And then everyone around...
Oh my gosh.
Around the child, they're the ones doing... unsettling things, and unsettling things are happening around him. The second film, which happens to be my favorite, Damien Omen 2. Damien's, I think he's 12, 13, around there.
Like a preteen.
And he's a complete and total smartass. And so when I watched that movie, I was kind of around that age. And guess what? I was a smartass too. And I love outsmarting my teachers. And there's this great scene where the teacher's trying to humiliate him, and he just boom, boom, boom. He recites historical events, you know, and it shows. It doesn't even seem like it's a power thing. I just think Damien is very smart,
right?
And I love that film because there's all this gore and scary stuff that happens, but you see Damien absorbing who he will become and who he is, right? Who he's meant to be. It's a coming of age story.
It is a coming of age story. A devil coming of age story.
It's a devil coming of age story.
It is a coming of age story. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the third film, he's 30-something, maybe 32, played by the amazing Sam Neill.
Oh, you're right. I love Sam Neill.
You know, usually Sam Neill plays a good guy, except for, you know, this film and an awesome Event Horizon. And in this, in Final Conflict, he's like, hey, this is who I am. You follow me or die, you know, that sort of thing. And I love all three films. And so the Omen films, this sounds blasphemous, are kind of sacred to me because all three are effective.
Oh, yeah.
All three of them.
Yeah, they're very effective.
Yeah, so, you know,
very creepy and foreboding and has all the good elements, gory.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what's interesting is the new films we're going to review, it's like all of a sudden everyone thought, hey, let's do an Antichrist film. Because all of a sudden there's Antichrist films, you know? So is there another one that pops into mind that you think of? I don't know if this one counts as an Antichrist film, but Hereditary is similar because they're trying to raise a demon into humanity, the cult around this group. So I don't know if it's meant to be the Antichrist, but it's sort of a similar blueprint. What do you think?
I don't know. I didn't get it from that. I got more cult, like devilish cult from it. Yeah. But as you know, and I've already reviewed it on here, it's not one of my favorites. Yeah. But I don't know if I get the same vibe as with like Omen and Rosemary's Baby and all that. The
70s horror is lightning in a bottle because I feel like 70s they were just, I've read a lot about the 70s in terms of cinema, and it was like classic Hollywood slapping, right into the new counterculture and all these great directors, taking big risks, wanting to do different things than classic Hollywood, but then also respecting classic Hollywood. So like, for example, you have something like Star Wars, which still has an orchestral score, like an older film, It's like those things slapped in the middle of each other. Or like Spielberg, I know he's a big Hitchcock guy, so some of his early films are very Hitchcockian.
Yeah.
But, I think 70s, when they realized they could make money from the devil.
Yeah.
After the huge blockbuster success of The Exorcist, I remember seeing TV movies that had a satanic theme.
Yeah.
Like, I remember this one movie with William Shatner called Devil Dog, the Hound of Hell. And it was about a satanic dog.
That's funny.
And I'm sure you can find trailers for this on YouTube. And it was creepy for a TV movie.
Yeah.
It had an edge.
Yeah.
I don't know if it holds up, but...
Who knows? With Shatner. Yeah. But I wonder how big of a risk it was to make those movies back then in the 70s. Like to make movies about the devil and women having sex with the devil to have this Antichrist baby, or it somehow being implanted into them, or whatever, however it was. I wonder.
I think it was somewhat of a risk. I know Polanski, when he did Rosemary's Baby, I think the novel was doing very well. And Polanski was the hotshot director
back then
at the time. So, I think it was a calculated risk. The public could have been grossed out by it and been like, screw that, I don't want to see that. But I think the film was just so well made.
Yeah, it was very well made.
That I think he showed that you could do something that has a very dark theme in a very elegant way.
Yeah, and then had Mia Farrow, who was at the time too.
And she's great. She anchors the whole film because you like her and you feel for her and you're kind of on that journey with her.
Right.
So, and then you get Friedkin doing The Exorcist, and he's like, okay, hold my beer. Because, Exorcist is really scary.
Oh, yeah.
It's still scary.
Oh, yeah.
So,
definitely.
But I think those two films, the rest of the films were not risks.
That's true. Yeah,
people were just like clamoring to watch scary stuff, and satanic stuff. So I remember the first movie I saw in the drive-in, one of the first, was a movie called The Devil's Reign. And Ernest Borgnine was in it. And I think Shatner was in it too. And it was really scary because it had the satanic cult, and there were these transformations where Borgnine's character would turn into this goat man.
Oh, cool.
And then the devil rain, would melt people.
Ooh, that's cool. I remember you telling me about it. I've never seen it, but...
Okay, I saw that movie, and I'm not lying. I saw that movie when I was probably 4.5, 5.
Oh my God.
Around there. Because my mom loved going to the drive-in. It was one of the first times I went to the drive-in. And the rest of the kids started to fall asleep because it was the later film.
Oh, yeah, the second film.
The first one was Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Or Seventh. The one with the Cyclops.
Yeah.
So imagine that. I'm raised on those films. Like, those are the two films I remember seeing on a large screen for the first time as a small child. I wasn't even in school yet.
That's crazy.
So. And
then you raised me.
Raised you to take my claw.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, but the Antichrist thing is such a timeless theme. I could see eras and eras of the Antichrist thing. But I think the truth is we've seen it. And thank God history has proven that eventually those kinds of people get thwarted.
Right. Right.
Ultimately good wins over evil.
Yeah.
So I think we're ready to start our feature review of 3 Antichrist films. Cue the music.
And now, our feature review.
Okay, so we have 3 films.
Right.
We have the first, Omen, which we saw in the theater.
Yes.
And then we have Immaculate,
Right.
which was in the theater, but we did not see it in the theater. We rented it. And then Sun, which was on Shudder.
Right.
So what we'll do, Reina, is we will review all 3 films. Oh my God, it's the crow from
My God.
from Damien
That's what I
Omen 2.
thought. I was like, what is that? That was scary.
It's the crow from Damien Omen 2, which I love. That familiar is my favorite familiar. It's like this creepy crow.
Yeah. I love it.
It's yelling at
Good
us.
timing.
So anyway, we'll review all 3 films, and then we'll do our spoiler zone portion.
Right.
The crow's not happy. I wonder if you guys can hear that. Anyway, there's a crow freaking out outside.
He wants to weigh in.
Mr. Crow, don't worry. We're going to do the Omen one first. So we'll do all 3 films, and then we'll go into the spoiler zone and talk about those specifically.
Sounds good.
Can you read the synopsis for the first Omen?
Yep. So a young woman is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church, but encounters a darkness that causes her to question her faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what are your initial thoughts? Again, we saw this in the theater.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was excited because it was in Rome. Because I love, that's such a beautiful setting. And, if you're talking religion and, all that, it's a really great setting. I had so many high hopes for it because, of course, it was an Omen movie. So I wanted to see what they would do with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But unfortunately for me, it just did not pay off at all.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of that movie with Jenna Maloney that was on Shudder a few months back called Consecration. It takes place in Scotland. Really similar setup.
Yeah, it was a really similar setup.
A young nun goes, to
An American nun, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so for horror people like us, we've seen this setup before. The Nun has a similar tone.
Yeah.
Young nun going to another convent sort of thing. But yeah, I think what was difficult was there wasn't enough context to the previous films.
Yeah.
Well, there are some at the end, but
yeah, but I mean, by the time you get to the end, it's like,
yeah, but tonally they don't feel the same.
No,
there's a cold seriousness in the first Omen films.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll even say this: I even think the remake with
let me look for them.
Julia Stiles, it captures that cold, scary tone in its own way for its own time.
Yeah.
This one does not.
No.
I think it tries, but I feel like it went a little light.
It was very light. I felt it was very light. It was so disappointing because I know we had so many hopes for it, just, based on some of the reviews you had seen online. And of course, I never read anything or look at anything. I was just really going off my love for the original film. Yeah. And it just did not measure up at all.
No, I don't think it measured up either. It had moments of shock at times.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of those films that should have had a lot of sense of dread. Mm-hmm. Because the original Omen films, they all have a sense of dread. But then they have those horrible, horrible, violent moments of shock. This one had some of those. But overall, just tonally, sophistication-wise,
yeah,
it just wasn't quite there. And it had the resources to be there.
Yeah, definitely did.
You could tell there was money behind the film.
And I felt they tried to do similar things like the Omen. Uh-huh. And it's like, don't repeat it if for one, if you're not going to do it as well, but then why are you repeating it? Like, think of something else.
Yeah.
Which I'll talk a little more in our spoiler part, but...
Sure.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just felt really flat.
Yeah. To wrap up this review for this film, I think it's worth a watch if you're a horror person like us where you need to watch everything. I just don't think it's that great. I'd give it a 6 out of 10 maybe. Yeah, just to give you a scale. Fair. We normally don't give numbers to things, but it just gives you an idea of where I'm landing on it. And when we went to see it in the theater, I was disappointed to have seen it in the theater. I like when I go to the theater and the horror movie's a home run.
Oh, yeah.
Like The Invisible Man, when we went to go see The Invisible Man. That was great. So, yeah.
But luckily, right now it's on Hulu and Prime, if you don't have Hulu. But you can watch it on either one.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to the next film, Immaculate.
Yes, Immaculate. So Cecilia, a woman of devout faith, is warmly welcomed to a picture-perfect Italian countryside where she is offered a new role at an illustrious convent. But it becomes clear to Cecilia that her new home harbors dark and horrifying secrets.
Wait a minute. Doesn't that sound familiar?
It is familiar, but... This one they did.
This is better. A better film.
Yeah, this one they definitely did better. And I absolutely love Sydney Sweeney, who plays the nun.
Yep.
I think she's an awesome actress, and I thought she did really well in this.
Yeah.
I know her from White Lotus, which is not really a scary, it's suspenseful, but not really a horror.
Yeah, she's good. The girl right now. She's in everything right now. So.
Yeah. And she does a really good job of playing the nun that walks into this really bad scene.
Yeah, I think this film was a lot more visceral. Seemed to have a decent amount of money behind it and resources, so that was nice to see. It was willing to get its hands dirty very early,
right?
And there's things about the ending that I really. Not enjoyed, but I thought was wow. I didn't think they were going to go that far.
Right.
So it's one of those films that it doesn't have kid gloves on, which I think a lot of like mainstream horror nowadays, stuff you see in the theater tends to. Yeah. I feel like Blumhouse is leading that charge, and that makes me so sad. I feel like they figured out with Megan that if they keep it light, they might get more people in seats. Yeah. And I'm very disappointed by that.
Yeah, very disappointed.
It's like you're turning in your punk rock card on horror.
Yeah.
But this one, Immaculate, is willing to go very dark places. Very sacrilegious places.
Yeah. I think they did a really good job of the grooming part of it too.
Yeah.
Because it was started out very innocent. And then it just really escalated, the grooming part of the nun. I thought they did that really well.
And the character she meets, you're not really sure who to trust.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting and great. And there's
several characters in there that you're not sure which one she should trust.
And there's subtle creepy in there as well as visceral.
Yeah. And visually cool. It's beautiful.
And she does a great job. She really steps into the role. So
yeah, she does a really good job.
Which is really cool. And again, without spoiling anything, because we're not in the spoiler zone yet, it's about, how an Antichrist might be conceived and, the conspiracy around that. And they approach it in a very unique way. So I definitely liked Immaculate better.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I'd heard about it, but I didn't know I didn't really know too much about it.
Yeah.
So when we watched it here in our little theater, I was like, okay, this is great. It's so awesome when you're at home and you find a really good film to watch.
Oh God, yeah. That's the best.
This is the best. Yeah. So I was really excited when we saw it. And of course we'll go more in the spoiler, but it was like, holy smokes.
Right.
I can't believe it went there. So.
Okay. I think we're done with that one. Okay. So our last film we saw on Shudder in our garage is Sun.
Okay. So Son. It's a 2021 movie. And it's when a young boy contracts a mysterious illness, his mother must decide how far she will go to protect him from terrifying forces in her past.
Oh, I love this movie.
This, for sure, was a surprise hit for me.
Absolutely. This is one of those awesome Shudder finds that, you know, that you're like, oh, it's probably going to be okay, because Shudder tends to curate pretty well, and then it ends up being a complete home run.
It's total, and then the title's not really giving of anything, you know. So at first I was like, really, dude, the Son?
It's interesting too, because Jaina, everyone knows Jaina doesn't watch trailers to anything.
No,
and I appreciate that, you know, philosophy. So I've noticed that I've started to adopt it a little bit too.
Good.
So what I do, I have to make sure to bring content into our fold that's worthy of a watch.
Yeah.
So I watch the trailers, but what I've noticed what I'm doing now is I stop them when I see enough. When I'm like, this looks good enough.
Yeah.
There's enough here that's intriguing and interesting. And that was the same with Son. I started watching the trailer for it, and I'm like, nope, this is good enough.
Good enough for a chance.
Good actors. Emil Hirsch is in there.
Right.
The overall tone of the film is good, independent, well shot, you know, well acted, great cast. The actor who plays the little boy is great.
Really good.
Yeah.
I thought, and it puts you through some really good twists and turns too.
Absolutely.
Like you don't know where necessarily it's going.
Yeah.
Because it's an illness, so you're not sure, you know, what the horror of it is at first.
Yep.
And so it's really the little twists and turns it takes and the little stops it makes is so good.
Yeah, and I would venture to say that this movie is the most devilish.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's willing to depict certain things unapologetically with the most confidence.
Yeah.
Sometimes you watch a film and you think to yourself, this director probably hasn't done horror before because they're not so confident about this visual.
Right. And
then you see something like the things you see in Son, and you're like, oh, and they know exactly what they want to show you. You know, they passionately go where they're going to go. Yeah. In a very dark way.
And I like that it was different.
Yeah,
because it's an illness, right? So it's not the whole they're possessed or, you know, whatever.
And it all makes sense.
Yeah.
It all makes sense.
It all comes together. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll even venture to say that this is my favorite film of the three.
Interesting.
And this is what I've been saying about horror. Unfortunately, the best horror is not in the movie theater.
Yeah.
It is these independent films with a smaller budget that, you know what they're doing and are super passionate about it. And it's decisive vision for their films. And the stuff Shudder gets is consistently pretty damn good.
Consistently good.
And sometimes you get these great gems.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of great gems on Shudder. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Cool. I think we're done reviewing all three. So I think let's summarize. First Omen, we were both kind of lukewarm on.
Lukewarm.
We're not big fans of. Immaculate.
Worth a watch for sure.
Yeah, we both liked it.
I liked it a
Worth
lot.
a watch. Third, Son.
Definitely should watch it.
Definitely we should watch it. I would even own it. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Cool. So with that said, I think we're ready to go into the spoiler zone. Ready? Here we go.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Beware. Spoilers ahead.
Mommy, it hurts. I always try to say something right when we come out of cool. So let's talk about the first Omen.
I mean, I don't even know what to spoil. So,
I can spoil like some of the hokiness. And again, if you're here in the spoiler zone, that means you've seen these films and you want to hear what we think in a more in-depth sort of way.
Yeah.
So the way they connect this happens to be, Damien's mom.
Right.
Everybody at the end of the movie. Now, it sort of ruins it.
Yeah.
It sort of ruins it because in the Omen films, you find out that he was born of a jackal.
Right.
So he came out of a dog's body, which I think is more twisted and more scary.
Yeah,
so
of
in
course.
this, they try to do it to be more that a jackal had. So born of a jackal, they reimagine it like she had sex with the jackal, which is pretty bad too. But it just sort of ruins it.
It ruins it.
Yeah.
I remember we both looked at each other like, "Hey,
yeah,
like what just happened?"
Yeah. Now, if they could have figured out a way to have him born of a jackal.
Yeah.
Like a Island of Dr. Moreau sort of thing.
Yeah.
That would have been way better.
Oh, way creepier. It would have saved the film. It could have saved the film.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the one thing I want to say about the first Omen is that it felt so derivative of so many films we've seen. Mm-hmm. Immaculate, has the same blueprint. Like we said, The Nun has a similar blueprint.
Yeah.
And kind of level of intensity as well. I think they were trying to hit the Blumhouse current day, horror light.
Yeah. And they even had the person commit suicide in the same way as the first Damien, and I thought that was really lame. Just because one, it wasn't as good, or well executed as the original.
Oh my God, the original is so scary.
Yeah.
The way she looks, the nun looks. It's all for you. It's all
that part.
So
it's all for you, Damien, right?
Yeah.
That's what's creepy about it. Mm-hmm. This one was just kind of like she seemed troubled. I don't know.
Yeah. It's and then again that haunting tone. Mm-hmm. I thought they were going to do the things with the pictures, where the pictures, have artifacts that show people dying.
Yeah.
They decided not to do any of that.
They did those torture things instead. I felt like they replaced it with that maybe. I don't know.
And I get it. They were trying not to be too derivative, but then they were very derivative of other things. So it's like, oh no, we're not going to make an Omen film like an Omen film is. We're going to make it like all these other films are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I didn't feel a spirited, passionate vision for the film.
No.
And there were moments in there that worked creepy and some that did not work at all. So
wasn't consistent.
But I'm hearing a lot of people like it. I think people who like intensity level 7, they might like it. 6.
7.
Jaina and I, we hover around the 12 and 13 intensity level. We're talking like Martyrs, The Loved Ones.
People, I think
so we like pretty intense horror.
Yeah.
I think we also like the intensity level 7s, but they just have to be good.
They have to be good. I was just going to say, it's not that we always have to be on that 13 level.
Yeah.
It's just they have to be good.
Yeah.
And especially if you're playing homage or adding on to such an amazing
if you're adding to a lineage,
trilogy,
this lineage.
That's so good.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, like I said, even
like The Exorcist.
Even the remake of The Omen, the first Omen, which I love the first Omen, the remake is actually pretty fucking good. And there's moments in the first in the new Omen film that's not in the original Omen that are actually really interesting.
Yeah.
Those visions she has.
They gotta make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those visions she has. And they're kind of flashes of imagery and they're really creepy and satanic. That stuff is really interesting. Really well done. And the sense of dread in the newer film is there. So I feel they really captured the Omen lineage. This did not.
And I didn't have that dread.
No, not really.
Halfway through, I remember Enzo was like, this is getting really good reviews. I'm so excited.
A lot of people like it.
Yeah, and then I remember I turned to him, I'm like, who gave good reviews? Because this is terrible. And we weren't even halfway through the film.
Yeah,
this is bad.
I wouldn't say terrible, but I
didn't think it was too
I don't think it's great either.
Okay, terrible might have been a strong word, but it was not great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the spoiler zone for Immaculate.
Now this film.
Yeah.
This film had a really good overall sense of dread and horror.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then the idea was interesting. The fact that they were using genetics to kind of make this happen. And then
it was
the
like a modern
Catholic
take on it.
The Catholic their motive for something like this happening was also interesting. Because, you know, when you fear the devil, you reach for God. And in fact, the Exorcist created this big resurgence in faith and belief. So I think that it was also really interesting.
Yeah.
But I think what made the film for me was that it was super, super pious and elegant, like a Catholic film would. And then it's super violent and dark and gory.
Yeah.
And then even the decisions she makes towards the end is very, very provocative. And different. I was like, whoa.
And like, different.
Yeah. Like she goes off.
Yeah.
And I think that rock and roll edge, that punk edge is there.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it a better film.
The only thing is my 13 self wanted to see the work.
Well, I think there was, I see at the end, you mean?
At the end. Sorry. Let me clarify that. At the end, I would have loved to have seen the work, but that's just my crazy 13 gore self.
Yeah. I mean, they showed a lot of the work before that, which is cool.
And it's so unexpected, right? That she would, because most of the time when they have a film like this, and, you know, the woman has the baby, of course, they're like, oh my God, this is my baby no matter what, and I need to take care of it. So that was a surprising ending.
Yeah. And they're trying not to offend.
Yeah,
they're walking usually they're walking a line.
It's true.
Not with this.
No, they didn't care about that line.
Not with this at all.
They blurred that line.
I think that's what makes the film good.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing.
I don't know if I'd own the film, but I'd definitely watch it again.
I wouldn't mind if you owned it. Yeah, I think I would definitely watch it again and maybe a couple times. I thought it was good. I think, too, it might be one of those films that you watch again and you might see something else.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, we mentioned the Jenna Maloney movie. I think that movie's better than the first Omen as well. Oh,
yeah. For sure.
And it's a similar premise.
It's a similar, yeah. It's definitely better than the Omen.
So if you have Shudder, I think Consecration is still on there. Give that a watch, and that's really well done.
It's definitely worth it
for what it is, and it's similar in setup.
Yeah, and Jenna Maloney's a good actress.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, and all the sets are great. The costume design, you know, it's in Scotland. It's beautiful. But give that one a shot. Okay, last. Son.
This one for me, well, again, this was like a surprise because it was one that Enzo chose. And I thought it was just so different because, again, it was a story about Antichrist, but it was so different because it was an illness rather than
and then they hit it. Pregnant. They hit it. People, they hit it.
Yeah, and they hit it. So you weren't sure where it was going.
I had seen the trailer. I only saw parts of it, and I said, this is good enough. I thought it was going to be a zombie film. I thought the kid had some sort of vampirism or some sort of, you know. Yeah. But what I love about that, when you really think about it, the kid is the Antichrist. He must sacrifice to stay in this plane of existence. Yeah. If he doesn't, he rots away. Yeah. So even that concept is so horrific and creepy. And then
they show their work, which is awesome. Yes.
And then you like the mom.
Yeah, you like the mom.
You feel for the mom. The little boy is so charming and cute. Like he's just so lovable. Yeah. Which makes the film work. And then Emil Hirsch, his character, you're like, okay, he's into her.
I was shocked.
His motives, does he want to be with her? And that end is awesome. Yeah. You always felt a little weirdness about him. But I always thought
the whole town and everything was weird. So you know, like it's that whole little small town vibe that when people are kind of off. Yeah. So, I was surprised by the end.
It's a great film. Yeah. And then it completely works, you know, yeah, you could see she would be having visions, and she thought this, and she's had her struggles with it before. Like, you know, you could hide it away, and then at the end, when you find out Emil Hirsch is part of it, that felt like an Omen moment.
Yeah.
Because in all those Omen movies, you have those secret protectors around Damien.
Orchestrating everything. Yeah.
My favorite scenes in the final conflict are when they're trying to kill the Christ child, and there are all these creepy people hovering around killing all these kids. It's so scary and creepy.
Yeah.
So the end of Son feels like that when you're like, oh, this guy was in on it the whole time.
Yeah.
It's such an effective ending, and it's really well done. So for me, by far, Son is the best film of the three.
Oh yeah, I have to agree with that.
Yeah,
Son is the best. And again, I don't know. No, definitely, they just did it really well. And I love when I never watch a movie, and I know I've said this before, but I never watch a movie and want to figure things out. So I'm never trying to figure things out. I just want to experience it.
You got to take it in.
Yeah, I just want to take it all in. So
suspend disbelief and take it in.
So for me, for knowing he was kind of creepy and not sure where he was fitting in and going with it, or even if the mom was just crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just all came together really well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to buy that because I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I thought it was great.
Yeah, I would definitely watch it a few times.
So do you want to talk about anything in particular that's coming up? I know we've got Midsummer Scream is coming up at the end of July, which we're excited about.
Yeah.
I'm working on a costume for that, and then I need to jump over and work on yours.
Yeah, we need to do my costume.
We have a few ideas.
We need to start thinking about Halloween.
That. Yeah, and if you're in the LA area, I really recommend Midsummer Scream. But sometimes it can take a long time to get in because it is a massive convention. It's huge. And so, if you have any sort of horror fandom, you will be so impressed. It is great. They even have mazes that you can go into.
Yeah. And people really get into it. That's what's cool. People dress up and people are really into it. So
yeah, I've always said
makes it cool.
I've always said that if you're waiting for one day of the year to do Halloween, you are doing it wrong.
That's for sure.
Halloween can happen all year long.
We're always on the hunt.
If you're looking for the right places, especially in the LA area.
Yeah.
So
always something that comes up for sure.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see everyone at Midsummer Scream.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll probably post some videos and stuff on how we dress for that.
Yeah.
But cool. Okay, I think we're done with the Antichrist episode.
Ooh, that was fun. Scare you later.
The Date Night Horror Show is written and produced by Enzo and Reina. All music written and produced by Enzo. Find Enzo and Reina online at thedatenightHorrorshow.com. Do you love the show? Then share it with your horror-loving friends and help spread the word.